Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. We got a good lineup here ahead of the UFC Vegas event, UFC Vegas 94, on this Saturday. First up, we're going to be joined by UFC bantamweight Brian Kelleher to preview his fight against Cody Gibson. Brian coming off that knockout loss to Cody Garbrandt, 3-fight losing streak. He knows this is do or die for his UFC career, and he says basically if he gets cut, that's probably going to be the end of his career. He said he doesn't really see a need of fighting if it's not in the UFC, so really big fight with Brian as his career could be on the line here. We're then going to be joined by Cody Durden to preview his fight against Bruno Silva. Really good chat with Cody coming off that loss to Tagiru Ulanbekov last December. Was supposed to fight Carlos Hernandez at UFC 303. Unfortunately, Cody got pulled from that fight. Wouldn't really fully disclose what it was, but sources say it was a USADA thing, not USADA, the new drug testing thing. But he quickly got cleared because it was contaminated, so he was able to fight so quickly and now fight Bruno Silva. He was supposed to fight last September, so he's really looking forward to this fight getting rebooked. And then we're going to be joined by Kurt Holobaugh to preview his fight against Kanye Kruszewski. I definitely butchered that name, but Kurt coming off that loss to Trey Ogden after his winning the Ultimate Fighter. Kurt doesn't know a whole lot about this opponent, but he says that last fight showed a lot of him getting knocked out, and he says he's gotten knocked out in the same way a couple of times, so he's confident he'll be able to land that power shot and knock him out. And then we close things out talking to Steve Garcia to preview his fight against Sungwoo Choi. Steve Garcia, 3-fight winning streak, 3 finishes, win over Chase Hooper, win over Shayla Nurmagomedov, and win over Costa, all by knockout. Has looked really good since dropping down to 45, which he feels has been a huge difference for him, and he thinks a win over Choi, should get himself a ranked opponent. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're jumping UFC bantamweight Brian Kelleher, who's back in action on July 20th. Brian, how's it going, man?
Doing great. How's everything?
I'm doing well. Let's see, I haven't fought since December. Was this about the time frame you thought you're gonna return? Or this is a bit later than what you thought?
No, this is about right. Coming off a knockout, whatever, they usually give you some time to rest, recover, come back, So I thought maybe from what I heard, it would be a little bit sooner, but I think this worked out.
Was that? I was trying to remember when we talked before that Cody fight. Was that the last fight of your deal, or was the one before? I was trying to remember. Have they re-signed you?
No, so I thought that was the last fight on my deal, but I think that this one is actually the fourth fight. I think I might have misunderstood at that moment. I thought that Journey Newsom fight that never happened. I think I was calculating that into the system.
Oh yeah.
So I think this is the last one on the deal.
And then just quickly on that last fight, what do you take away from that? Fighting former champ and Cody, one of the top bantamweights. What do you take away from that fight?
It was a tough loss to handle because how good I felt going in, psychologically, physically, everything felt really good. And, I was doing well early on in the fight with the calf kicks, and that was kind of my game plan. And I thought, man, this is paying off. And, a couple more of these, he's going to be limping, and I'm going to have an easy way to deal with him and his speed and all that. So I felt good going into the fight. I felt good in the fight, and he just happened to catch me with a right hand. He's known for that, and he caught me a little bit closer back to back where I was rocked still, kind of recovering, and he got me again. There's really not a lot of negatives that I take it besides how bad it hurts to lose. It's just that, you got to have that same mentality even coming off a loss going into your next fight. So I think really just making sure I stay dialed in, keep my self-belief high, and just go into this next fight with that same belief that I had going into that one.
And with Cody Gibson, how familiar were you with him? I know his first in the UFC, you weren't in the UFC yet. You guys kind of missed your window to fight then, but then obviously now you go and fighting him now. How familiar were you with him?
Yeah, true redemption, right? I get another chance at another Cody. So, that's cool. But I'm familiar with him because he was on the Ultimate Fighter, I think twice, right? I don't know. And he went to the finale this last time against Katona. He fought Aljo in his debut way back, and he was in and out of the UFC pretty quick. And then he came back from this last season of the Ultimate Fighter, which I saw him on there. And, he's a gritty veteran, just like myself. And, he has wrestling in his roots. And I think, that's where he likes to take fights if he can. And, I know he's coming off some losses as well. So we're both kind of in there with that do or die attitude.
He's a good wrestler, just like you are. So kind of what happens a lot of time when these wrestlers fight, it kind of ends up striking. Do you imagine that could happen here where you kind of wrestling just negates each other?
I could see that. Yeah, that happens a lot, and it's not like in his fights that he's like always pushing for takedowns. Like in that Katona fight, I don't think there was one takedown at all. I don't know if that's injuries or stylistically or what, but Katona was, doing well on the feet. They both were landing good shots. It was a pretty competitive, close fight, but I was surprised to see that he wasn't shooting any takedowns in that fight. I will say that in an honest assessment, I know, I've lost some fights by submission. He might be looking at that and thinking, like, let me get this guy down because that's where he might have his best chance at beating me. He's a long guy. He's tall for the weight class, big for the weight class. So for me, getting inside and landing power shots is always my route to victory.
How much pressure is going on you in this one? Just coming off 3 losses, like you said, you think this is the last fight? Like, is there like a back against the wall kind of pressure here?
Yeah, I mean, I can't lie and say there isn't. I like to try to tune that out and just kind of pretend that this is my debut, getting in the UFC and trying to hit that reset button, mentally. But of course, there's high stakes, and that's for both of us, really, to keep our job, and for me, like, that just gives me all the motivation that I need to leave it all in there, like, that's all you could do really is put your maximum effort in there and hope for the best. And, all these guys in the UFC are good. So I'm training as hard as I can. I feel great in camp. My sparring has been amazing. And, I've been dieting for a long time and feeling like I'm putting all the work in. So hopefully that pays off.
Going back to the Apex, do you enjoy that, or are you disappointed that just at the Apex?
I don't really like the Apex for the fact that, like, I believe like I could feed off the fans if
Hmm.
things get crazy in these fights. Like, I like hearing the crowd go nuts. It gives me that boost. But the pros to the Apex are that I could hear my corners well, but so could he. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird. And it is like more intimate setting. And I will say that the one positive I take from the Apex is that, like, the nerves don't really get like as heightened because you don't feel that energy walking in the building as much as you would with like a full arena. So that's kind of how I look at the Apex.
Who are kind of the main guys you're working with for this fight with Cody?
So for me, I'm always training with my brother. He's a taller,
Mhm.
longer guy. He knows my style the best, but in the gym, we have amazing young guys coming up at Long Island MMA. We got like a Sheik at gym. He just won 2 more fights after the Contender Series. John O'Day, he's like one of the fastest guys I've ever seen in the gym, and he's got really crisp hands. And he's a taller, longer 45er, so he's been a help. John Caldone, he's another 45er, 55er, but taller, longer guys I've been trying to work with. Tom Pooch, he's like a really strong wrestler, grinder, and there's a couple other guys I'm trying to remember. We got Chris Nugg. We got just a bunch of young guys. It's kind of interesting because I don't really train with any other UFC fighters currently, but I train with guys that are dreaming to get to where I'm at,
Yeah.
and they're hungry and they're young and they're in prime shape. You know what I mean? So you would think like, okay, you should train with the level of a UFC fighter, but I know from experience being in there grinding with these guys that they have the potential to be where I'm at. And I love the fact that they keep me feeling young, like, and hungry. So it's really beneficial for me.
Yeah, I've actually talked to quite a few UFC fighters who said the same thing because, like, the guys that aren't in the UFC, like, maybe they try a bit harder against you guys to see if they're on that level with you guys, or like guys in the UFC, like, some days they just don't want to try that hard in practice or don't want to risk getting hurt. So, like, I've heard that the guys that are coming up are always the harder sparring rounds and the harder kind of practice guys to go with.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like, they have like a chip on their shoulder trying to say, like, hey, like, I know, like, you're in the UFC. I want to spar hard against you and try to win these rounds and prove to themselves that, like, they belong there. So, but these guys, they do go really hard, but they also are great training partners. They understand where I'm at in my career and how to work with me, how to help me out. So, it's been amazing this camp so far.
How do you kind of see this one playing out with you and Cody then?
I feel like this fight's gonna be a back and forth, like, grinding type of fight. I know his last fight against Miles Johnson, he was disappointed in. Like, I didn't see the same person in that fight. But like, for me, like, this is my life. Like, I don't know what I would do besides fighting. And I know he teaches kids and stuff and has kids himself and has a family. So it's a bit different for me. Like my literal life feels like it's on the line. So I'm going to go in there and fight like that. But I see myself hurting him with my power. And I see, whatever comes, whatever he gives me from that moment is I'm going to take it and jump on it.
Oh, what do you think a win here does for you in this division?
I don't really think it does a crazy amount for me. You know what it does? But the biggest and best thing it does is it saves my job, I feel, and it gives me a clean slate at a new contract, hopefully, with the UFC. I feel like I have, years left, like at least 2 or 3 years left in me. I don't like to put a number on that. I know I'm an older veteran in the game, but like I feel great, since recovering from surgery and everything and being back in the gym with these young guys. Like, I think if I get a win here and a finish here, especially, I can try to push maybe for that sphere card. Try to push for a good name, call somebody out, and get on there.
Yeah, and you're closing on 10 UFC wins too, like 2 away. Like, is that something that's a goal of yours to get that double-digit wins in the UFC?
I don't really think about the number of wins in the UFC. I think more about like just this fight and just getting this win. But what does mean a lot to me is that I still, I've had a lot of UFC fights. Like I have a lot of time with the company, and I've been able to have ups and downs and come back and stay with them. And my goal is to stay with them till the end. Like this was my dream to begin with, and I want to finish my career with the company. So that's one of my goals right there.
Just final thing, like you kind of mentioned a bit, you want to get on the spear, but like, what is that ideal rest of the year look like after this? Like, hoping at least one more in.
Oh yeah, definitely one more. I would say one is ideal, two is possible. If I get on that sphere card, I mean that's September 20th or 14th.
Yeah.
So that leaves a potential MSG at the end of the year in New York, where I'm from. Like that would be amazing. If I don't get on the sphere, I think MSG would still be a great, next fight. That's what I will push for if I can't get on that card. But yeah, I definitely want at least one more after this.
Well, Brian, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Yeah. All right, we're jumbo UFC flyweight Cody Durden, who's back in action on July 20th. Cody, how's it going, man?
What's going on, man? I'm doing well, just training. Been down here at Coconut Creek for 7 weeks, and we got 2 weeks till we weigh in. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a great fight.
Just before we get into this one, I want to touch on everything kind of happened. You're supposed to fight at 303 against Carlos Hernandez. You got pulled, and then you ended up getting cleared. Like, are you allowed to kind of say what happened and why you ended up getting pulled from that fight?
I mean, I really can't say what happened, but it's probably no secret, There's substances out there that are contaminated, and that may be what it is, and may not be what it is, but it doesn't matter though, man. I was exonerated, and I'm good, I'm an honorable person, and I've always acted in good faith, and now we have a better fight that pushes me closer to the top of the division.
How frustrating was that for you though to get pulled from that card? Like, it was such a big event, like International Fight Week, like massive event, especially when you were on it originally. It was Conor headlining, even though Conor didn't fight. It was still a big card. Like, how disappointing was that for you?
Oh, at first it was very, very disappointing. That's what I dream for. Like that's what I dream about, being in front of a big crowd and feeling that energy, and just living in the moment, taking it all in. And plus, Carlos Hernandez was he's nowhere near on my level, and it was disappointing at first. But when I took a step back and think about it, I mean, this fight is a better fight for me. It's a harder fight. Bruno Silva's on a 3-fight win streak, 3 finishes, and yeah, he's up there with me. So we should be fighting.
You guys were supposed to fight last year, then you end up taking that Hadley fight, and then I know they didn't clear you to fight. Like, so are you happy then that it is getting rebooked? Now you guys are getting a chance to fight again because you were once booked?
I mean, I kind of wanted a top 15 opponent, but it is what it is. I'm not disappointed. I wasn't too keen on fighting somebody from the same gym as me. You know, we were scheduled to fight last September. I couldn't fight because I got caught in that arm bar and it messed my arm up. So I had to wait, heal, recover, and then Bruno Silva, he moved to the gym down here and was a teammate of mine, you know. And then after that, he got asked to fight me, and he said yeah. And I was like, well, fuck, guess we're fighting now, you know. Doesn't matter to me. Business is business.
Is he still training there then?
Yeah. We had a little square off today. It was quite funny.
Does that make it like harder to train where you don't want him seeing certain things, or like are you?
I don't give a fuck. It ain't gonna help him.
Are the coaches like? Do you have to like work with different coaches then? Like, are coaches? Yeah, like that's kind of changed then.
Yeah. Well, they separate us at times, but just like today, we were training on the same mat near each other, you know. But there was about 40 people on the mat or plus, so we were on the kind of the opposite sides of the mats from each other.
And there's no like bad blood between you guys, so I guess it's all fine in the gym. Like, I guess it is just business, like you said.
Yeah, it's just business. We get to find out who's varsity and who's JV.
With Bruno, like, what have you made of his UFC run? Like, obviously started off not the best, but then 3 straight wins, like 3 finishes. I know he hasn't fought in a while, but has looked good in those last 3 fights.
Yeah, but I mean, who do you look good against though? That's the real question. Depending on who you're fighting, you know, you can look like the best guy in the world. So the 3 guys he fought, I don't think they're in the UFC anymore. And the other 3 guys that he lost to, they're really good.
How do you kind of see this fight? Like, how do you think you match up against Bruno? Like, obviously both you guys are good wrestlers. I think you'd have the advantage there. It's like, how do you think you kind of match up against him?
Man, I think it's a great matchup for me. Good fight for me. I'm gonna go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and leave with a pocket full of money. I got the length, I got the heart, I got the dog in me, and the experience, man. I'm a vet.
Your striking has been looking much better in all your fights in the UFC. Like, I think that's something that you've gotten a lot better on. But like, how important do you think your wrestling will be in this fight? Because that is kind of your bread and butter. Where like you can, if you want, you can probably take him down.
Yeah. We'll have to find out, man. You just have to tune in and see. My hands have definitely gotten better since the Tiger fight as well. I made some adjustments, and I've been working really hard, you know, just trying to get better. And I've incorporated a lot more tape study into my training this fight camp, and so it's made me realize like what I'm doing wrong and how to fix it.
How do you kind of see this fight playing out then?
Man, I'm gonna go in there, exert, you know, close the distance, keep the distance, be like a magnet, and do what I want. Take him down if I want to. If it goes to the clinch, I'm ready for that. If he's trying to roll for leg locks on me, I'll be ready for that. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Say you go out there and do get a finish, which you're always kind of after. Where do you think that puts you in the flyweight division? Like, I'd have to imagine top 15 guys next for you.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to fight Matthias Nicola. I think that's a great fight next.
Yeah, because he's I think he's 10. He's coming off a bit of losses. He'll have to fight down. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, just first fight this year? Like, I imagine you're hoping to be pretty active after this to kind of make up for a bit of lost time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to fight. I put my name in the hat to fight Joshua Van twice. Put my name in the hat to fight Andre Lima, and they just aren't giving me those fights because I don't know why, but I'm trying, and they got to offer me 3 fights a year, you know, and this is my first fight this year, so let's go. Let's get to it, you know. Let's stay active after this one if I'm healthy.
I know one guy you've taken, like, you've talked about on Twitter is Jimmy Flick. Do you ever think that rematch happens? Do you think you're kind of past him at this point?
Come on, man. You think it's gonna happen? If you're Mick Maynard, you're gonna give me Jimmy
That's
Flick?
why I don't think they would. I didn't know if like you would ask for it just to get it back, even though you're ahead of him.
No, I mean, dude, he got lucky, bro. I had a torn ACL. I broke my toe 2 weeks before the fight. I went into the fight with a torn ACL. I got pink eye. I weighed in. They wouldn't let me fight because I had pink eye, conjunctivitis. So they pulled me and said, hey, let's come back and fight 2 weeks later. So I had to make weight again. And then I go out there, and he caught me with a flying triangle after I was outstriking him 47-7.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, man. I mean, that fight just that don't even make sense. And Nathan Manus, like, dude, did you watch them two fight? Just wasn't even a high level fight, you know? It was like they weren't even trying to finish each other. They weren't trying to hurt each other. They were just in there sparring and having a good time. It's almost a scam to the organization.
And just final thing, like flyweight division, kind of wide open at the top because Pantoja's beating a lot of those top guys. Like, do you kind of think you string together a couple wins, like you can get into that title picture pretty quickly just because of who Pantoja's beating and kind of needing those fresh matchups?
Man, you go in there, you put on a great performance, have entertaining fights, and the title shot can come, has to come. Like, dude, there's always going to be a title shot. Next. You know what I mean? So, I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have 3 title fights a year, but maybe 2. But yeah, you just got to keep winning, and not only win, but you got to win in dominant fashion. You see Makayev not get the title shot on a 6-fight win streak because he's wrestling, and they don't think it's exciting. Casual fans don't think it's exciting. When my son watches the fights, he doesn't understand the grappling, but he understands a big right hand that knocks somebody out. You know what I mean? You got to think about it from like different perspectives, from an athlete perspective. Think about it from a casual person like my mom who likes to watch the fights. She don't know what the hell is going on in the wrestling.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Like for the pay-per-views, I normally have my friends over, and like a couple of them are big UFC fans, others just show up just to watch. And like when it's on the ground, they're like, "Oh, this is boring. I don't really get what's going on." And it's just like if any fight gets down to the ground, they're like, "Oh, this fight sucks." And it's like it could be like extremely high level and fun, but to them, they're just like, "Ah, no, this fight sucks. It's not striking."
Yeah, that's just like the heavyweight Andre Arlovsky fight.
Yeah.
The last one versus Bude. It was all striking fight, but man, they were just clinching against the cage the whole time. Like, that's not what the fans want to see. That doesn't help the sport.
Well, Cody, though, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, we're joined by Kurt Holobaugh, who's back in action here in 10 days now, I guess. Kurt, how's it going, man?
Doing good, man. Yeah, 10 days out, feeling good. Still training. Still got a training session scheduled for today, and get a couple more days of training in before I head out to Vegas.
Just quickly on your last fight against Trey, like earlier this year, like what do you take away from that fight? Like a pretty tough guy to kind of get a read on and get like in a fight with.
Yeah, there's a couple different things I took away from that fight. There's no excuses. He was the better man. He got the victory. He did what he had to do. But I think I may have been a bit overtrained in that fight. Wasn't really motivated. And I think it took a fight like that to really get some fire back in me because, I was on a big winning streak going through some other fights before I got to call it the Ultimate Fighter, winning the Ultimate Fighter. So it's technically been like since 2019 since I've lost a fight. So I think it's kind of good to bring me back down a little bit, take that loss and, get a little fire back under me.
And how happy were you to make the pretty quick turnaround in terms of what some guys are getting booked like just 4 months later?
Yeah, it's kind of what I wanted, because after I did win the Ultimate Fighter, before I fought Trey Ogden, I think I was out for like 7 months, and And I feel like I'm the type of fighter that needs to stay on that momentum, and every time I'm off for around 7 months, I feel like that really kills the momentum. And I think that had a lot to do with it because when I got the call for Trey Ogden, I jumped straight into a training camp for 12 straight weeks, and went all out in my training camp and just think I overtrained. For one, I think my weight was a little too high, and I didn't know how hard that would be to get some of that weight off. So I instantly started dieting, instantly started training, and I tried to keep that up for 12 weeks straight, and really feel like I burned out big time. I think I did things a little bit different for this one, and I feel really good.
And your opponent here, like, I'll probably butcher his name, but like, how familiar were you with him?
I wasn't really that familiar with him. I do know the guy that he fought on the Contender Series because I had one of my teammates fight that guy a couple times. So I remember when that guy got the call to the Contender Series. I remember talking about it with my teammate that fought him, and now I just so happen to be fighting the guy that beat him on the Contender Series, Kenyon Kotruski. And but after I got the call for him, I went back, started watching some stuff. He's got some good wins on his record. Seems like a very tough guy, good jiu-jitsu. So seems like a style that I really enjoy to fight.
And do you take much away from his debut fight? Like, he took on short notice, stepped up against Elvis Brenner. I know he got knocked out early, but like, I'm pretty sure, like, if I remember correctly, I think it was only like a week or two he might have stepped up, if that. Like, he stepped out. So do you really pay much attention to that fight just because of how short notice it was?
Not really, not a whole bunch of tension, but yeah. Not only was that a short notice fight, but he didn't really even have to cut weight for that fight. I think they catch weight at 165 for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not really. Elvis Brenner's a tough guy, but I will say that he got knocked out very similar to a knockout or two that he had in the past. It seems like I think it's a difference for guys to get knocked out and TKO'd. And it looks like both of his knockouts, he's went face down, motionless, completely out cold. So I feel like he's got like that switch that if you hit that switch right, it turns the lights off.
How do you think you match up against him then?
I think I match up very good. Like I said, I think it's his style is a style that I really like to fight. He's gonna come forward. He's gonna try to fight a little bit. He'll mix in some wrestling, but he's not the type of guy that's just gonna try to hold you down. He might shoot a takedown and put you down, but he's not just gonna try to hold you and win a round. He's gonna try to finish you. He's gonna try to, end the fight. So, anytime somebody is doing that, it's gonna give openings. And I feel like if I do get put down, like versus how it went against Trey Ogden in the last fight, I think I'll be able to get back up a little bit easier in this fight.
How do you kind of see it playing out then? Like, how do you see yourself winning?
I think I get the knockout. I just feel like early on in my career, I had a lot of submission wins, and now I'm really starting to let my hands go, and I feel like I'm really starting to hit hard. Mm-hmm. And you can see that in the last couple fights. Even in the fight with Trey Ogden, I landed some good punches that looked like it hurt him a little bit, and I just feel like I'm really starting to hit hard. And my boxing, I feel like, is very good, and I really feel like my boxing is some of the best boxing in mixed martial arts. So, yeah, hopefully I can go out there and just, start touching him a little bit, make some punches land, counter wrestle in the transitions I got to counter wrestle in and try to get a knockout.
Oh, what do you think a win here does for you and like puts you in the division?
I think it just still kind of keeps me floating right where I'm at. Who knows what's going to happen? Of course, I've been around the UFC for a long time, and maybe a lot of people don't realize that. Like, yeah, I haven't been in the UFC the whole time, but I made my UFC debut in 2013. I was in the UFC, I think, before Conor McGregor even went to the UFC. So I've been one of those guys that's been in and out and around the UFC for, a long time now, years. And, there's a lot of names that I think make sense for me. I may never get a title shot. I may never be a ranked fighter, but there's a lot of names on that roster that will be a fun fight and especially a fun fight for the fans.
Just at the Apex, is that a bit disappointing for you?
It is what it is. Now that we know family members can go, I don't think it's as disappointing. So, and I'll have some of my family there, some of my wife, and some of my kids. So, that's exciting to me. Of course, I feel like I am a guy that likes to fight in front of a big crowd. But, normally I do well in small venues like the Apex. So, and now I'm super familiar with the Apex. This will be my 4th fight in the Apex. And,
just 2 more things is like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, already 2nd fight this year, gonna set you up to have a pretty active year.
Yeah, maybe this fight, hopefully get a win, and then try to fight maybe one more time before the end of the year, and try hopefully get 2 good paychecks, and see where that puts me, see what that does for me in the UFC, and see what happens.
Just final thing, you spend a lot of time with them. Like, I just wonder you see that Conor Chandler fight, and it's still not happen. Because I remember just talking about it after Tough, and we thought like it was gonna happen soon. Like, Tough was a while back for you guys now, and it still hasn't happened.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, you just never know what's going on behind the closed doors. Hopefully, they get that fight done. Hopefully, we can finally see them fight one day. Of course, I'm always going to pull for my coach, Michael Chandler. Hopefully he can go in there and finally get what he's been waiting for, and that's to fight Conor McGregor and get a win.
Well, Kurt, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, man, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we're jumping UFC featherweight Steve Garcia, who's back in action on July 20th. Steve, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, I thought I'd be talking to you a lot sooner than this. Like, were you surprised that it took you this long to get booked after that win in December?
Oh yeah, dude. It's been like almost 7 months since my last fight, dude. It's been kind of frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, because I've been trying to get something rolling since like March. I thought I would have had a call, sooner. I did actually have one call. It was against Ige on a 2-week notice. But I was in Florida, like on vacation, taking my son to Disney World, and I would have absolutely jumped on the opportunity, but it just didn't work out for my timeline. And Ige's tough too, man. You kind of want to camp for that guy, but yeah, other than that, man, I haven't really had any phone calls or anything like that. I was bugging them for a while, and finally they just like, hey, you want to fight this guy? I was like, sure. I need something. So.
And with Sungwoo Choi, like, how familiar were you with him? Like, he's been around the UFC for quite a bit now.
I feel kind of like messed up for saying it, but I didn't know who he was. Yeah, dude. When they're like, hey, you want to fight Choi? All I heard was Choi, and I thought it was like the Superboy.
Yeah.
The one that I thought it was him. And so when they said like, they're like, no, not him. It's Sungwoo Choi. And I guess they call him like the Korean Zombies prodigy or something like that. And I was like, I haven't heard of him, but let me check him out. So I checked him out, and he's a gamer. You know what I mean? He's on this big roller coaster. He wins, he loses, he wins, he loses, and but he brings it. So yeah, man. As far as knowing him, I didn't really know him, but I know him now.
Do you bring in anyone different for this camp? Or is it just the same guys you normally work with?
A lot of the same guys that I work with. I mean, I actually have a few other buddies that I've been working with too. Just to kind of like, they actually have similar styles. Like, I have a buddy named Andres, so I got him coming out, and he's gonna work with me, all next week and stuff. It's honestly very similar styles. Those hands, nice leg kicks, good front hooks, stuff like that. So yeah, man, like he did, I got him, and ultimately, it's just whatever Coach Wink and Greg have me doing, that's what I'm doing.
Do you think you fought anyone like him in the UFC?
No, I don't think that. Like, he has a very fundamental style. It's very bouncy. He rocks. He has a rock to him. You know what I mean? And I don't think I've fought anybody like that I can remember. Yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting to go in there and fight someone like him. So I guess it'll be first for me.
Since dropping down to featherweight, like, it's kind of crazy how much success you've had. But like, I know you're having a lot of success at featherweight on the regional scene. Like, do you maybe not regret, but do you wish you would have just went to featherweight from the beginning in the UFC?
That was the game plan altogether. But what threw me off was I had some medical problems that really got in the way of that, and for whatever reason, well, actually I know the reason, but my body was so locked up, like internally, like my organs and my immune system, everything was kind of just like shot, and it took me a while to kind of regulate. So I went to a bunch of doctors. My liver wasn't working really well. It was a lot of bad weight cuts that like had interfered with a lot of that, and then I had to still compete. You know what I mean? So I tried to do as much as I could to be a 55er, and it's a lot harder than you expect to like move up and really do well. Because majority of my career it's spent at 35, so I was a 35er for like 20 some fights, and then I was able to move up to 45, and I felt strong there. I felt like I was, you know, like nothing really was different. You know what I mean? So at 55, you can definitely tell you're fighting guys that are walking around about 190, almost 200 pounds, and I've never passed 180. So um, yeah, man. Even when I fought in Singapore, like I went in that cage at like 165. You know what I mean? And I weighed in at 155. So it was crazy. But there's a whole story behind it. But yeah, that's kind of what messed it up.
And not related to your fights, I just want to add that maybe people don't realize is like, you guys looking to get at your record. Like, it's pretty crazy the guys you fought on the regional scene. Like, before you even got to the UFC, like, you fought like Ricky Tercio, Sean Bunch, like Ronnie Lawrence, like Joe Warren. Like, was that like part of the game plan was like to fight the toughest guys possible? Or do you just think that's kind of how it ended up playing out? Now you look back and you're like, wow, I did fight a lot of those guys that had big names in the UFC and Bellator.
Whoever they threw at me, I took. It didn't matter who it was. You know what I mean? So like I knew if I wanted to be any good, I had to fight everybody. Of course, I'm not like not being ridiculously stupid with my career. I'm not fighting like these insanely top level athletes. You know what I mean? They were all good, and I knew I could compete with all of them, and I knew I could beat them too. And um, I think that comes a lot from my like amateur record, because like when I'm actually, people don't know, but I'm like 14-0 as an amateur, and that's kind of unheard of, especially these days, because one, everybody wants to get paid. But I started off at 15 years old, and I had a lot of kickboxing, a lot of grappling tournaments, and the way our process was like you had to place gold in like a couple of grappling tournaments. You had to do a couple kickboxing smokers, and then you like for me it was like I had to get like a belt like or something. So like I got a IKF title belt. Um, and then at 17, I was able to like my dad had to like sign a waiver for me to fight because I was technically underage to compete, and I was 17, and I fought a guy who was like 26 years old, and it was just like anybody they put in front of me, it was like that's who I fought. But everybody that I trained with was always bigger, was always like better. And then I was always in at a Jackson, so those guys used to beat me up at a young age. So you really come up through the fire, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's really helped me in my career. Looking at it now, back then it was just like some of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But it paid off, and I felt like we were successful.
Back to your fight with Choi, with all the success you've had on the feet, like, do you think you'll try to wrestle you at all? Like, I know he's a striker, but it seems like you are turning a lot of these guys into wrestlers. Like, do you expect him to shoot at some point, or do you think that's going to play mostly out on the feet?
It's kind of interesting. I like to say he's going to keep it on his feet. I thought Costa would have definitely kept it on his feet. And he was on a single leg, so fast in the first round. Kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. So now I go into all these fights, thinking that they're going to shoot. Anytime he's ever been hurt, he just kind of goes ballistic, and he just like goes wild, and he's trying to get back some leverage. And he normally does that striking, so I would assume that he would still try to do that with me. Again, I don't know because I've assumed so. We're prepared, for everything. But I think, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but when I hit you with something super solid, man, it's not something that like you can play around. You're just gonna reach for something that's around. You're gonna reach for a leg. You're gonna just panic, or you're gonna figure something out. Um, and I'm interested to see what these new gloves, man. I'm not too big of a fan of them right now, but the new gloves, I think they're gonna kind of change a little bit of kind of what I bring. So I have to change a little bit of some stuff.
Have you got sent the gloves, or have you like talked to people about them, like to work train with them?
Yeah, they sent me a pair of new gloves and stuff, and the difference is, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not trying to like throw anybody in the bus. I don't know who decided to bring these on. I don't like them as far as they almost feel like I can go to the Big Five and buy them at like Century, like
Mm-hmm.
Big Five gloves. That's what I feel. Some people like it, some people don't. I think grapplers are especially gonna like it because they have like a lot more flexibility in there. But what I liked about like the UFC gloves that we were using already is that a lot of like if you looked at a lot of the weight, it was carried in the knuckles.
Yeah.
So when you connected the point of impact, like I'm not a scientist, you know what I mean? But when I felt it, like when I hit somebody, I felt like that weight per impact, like when it connected with somebody, it made a difference. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of shown already, but you're not seeing just flatline knockouts
Mm-hmm.
lately. You're seeing more people getting like TKO'd and stuff, and I think that's because of the gloves. And I'm not saying, I mean, people get knocked out without gloves. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I do think that the new gloves, I think they're like a few like milliounces like lighter, like 0.63 ounce lighter, depending on what size of glove you have. Um, so I don't know, man. Like I said, like I have my preference. I kind of wish they gave me an option if I could pick which glove I want to use. I'd use the old ones because that fits my style better.
Mhm.
Um, and they kind of came out cool. Like they have a new strap on it and stuff. So that's, I guess, cool. Uh, but yeah, man. And then like all the lettering and stuff comes off like super easy. Like it
Oh.
just, I was I was kind of surprised. You know what I mean? I think they're gonna have to like improve it just a little bit more. Um, and it's not the Steve show. You know what I mean? It's the UC show. Whatever they're like, all right, you got to fight with these gloves. All right, give them to me. You know what I mean? I'm still gonna hit you as hard as I can with whatever I got. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my take on it. I haven't used it in an actual contest yet. So let's see.
Going into this fight, you're actually the favorite for once. Like,
Oh
does
wow.
that matter to
Look
you?
at
Out of the last three, you're all like pretty big underdogs. Like, it seems like a lot of people are putting a whole lot of respect on you.
Nah, dude, they all want me to lose. They all want me to lose. That's how I see it. They all want me to lose, and uh, that's why I keep that chip on my shoulder. You know what I mean? It's just I don't I don't play that game anymore. At times, I'm like, yeah, it's about time that they figure it out. You know what I mean? That type of mentality or attitude. But nah, man, I'm not changing anything. Like for me, I feel like they've been giving me guys that they're trying to promote and trying to, prop up, and you know, I may not be the easiest to promote because I'm more of a purist when it comes to the art of what we do. You know what I mean? They pay me to fight. They
Mhm.
pay me to fight, and I need to give them probably something more to promote besides my highlight reel. You know what I mean? They want to see me talk. They want to see more action. They want more viewers on my social media and stuff like that. And I know I'm not here necessarily for the likes. I'm not here for the follows. Like if you want to follow me and all stuff like that, like thank you, and I would appreciate it. But to be honest, I'm here to pay my bills, make my money, collect both my checks, and represent myself, my integrity, and everything else as best as possible. But you know what? Like I have no problem speaking facts or speaking truths, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? The UFC is a multi-billion-dollar company. Like they can promote me if they want to. You know what I mean? So I feel like people are going to see regardless if I'm an underdog or I'm the favorite. It does not matter. Like it's what I do in there is what's going to matter, and they've been seeing it. The last three fights. I'm a three fight finish 4 if you include Ontiveros, and 5 if you include my contender series. So like I finished all my wins are all finishes that are tied to Zuffa. You know what I mean? So ultimately you're gonna see Steve keep doing what he's doing. Like I'm not changing anything.
Just building off that, like how do you kind of see yourself winning this fight then?
I'm sorry?
How do you kind of see this fight playing out then?
I'm always looking for the finish. Like I feel like it can be a first rounder or it's gonna be a third rounder. Like that's what I'm feeling. It depends on what he gives me. So like because obviously I'm assuming you've kind of watched him a couple times, right? He's a counter guy. You know what I mean? So you're fighting a guy who technically just waits on you and tries to get you to mess up and tries to get you to like fall into some of his traps and stuff. And it's kind of tough to fight those guys because instead of just almost clashing me in the middle and we're gonna fight, you're almost kind of fighting a guy who's not really like engaging as often, and sometimes it can make for boring fights and stuff. And I try my best not to. I always want to have like when Steve's on the card, man. Like I want you to tune in. Like that's it, hands down. But we'll see how he engages in the first couple of maybe seconds, 10 seconds. We'll see. It's all on really how he's gonna participate in the fight because he knows I'm gonna bring it. You know what I mean? So in my head, I can take him out early. If I can get things going right away. If it's just like this like battle between back and forth, trying to figure out who's gonna just lead this dance. I can maybe get him to the third round and take him out then. But that's just what's going on in my head.
Say you do get the win and finish him. Like, where do you think that puts you in the division? Like, on a nice win streak. Like, I think maybe a ranked opponent would have to be next for you.
I have my opinions, but what would you think?
I think you have to get a top 15 guy here especially if you finish Choi like you have like everyone else.
Well, I'm glad you think that because I think that, but I don't want to be like full of myself. I don't want to be that guy, but I want a top 15. I think I would honestly, to be honest, I want Dan Ige. That's who I want. That's the truth. That's who I want. I even threw my name out there because I think Brito, I don't know if he got injured or whatever, but he pulled out of that fight because he was the headliner of my card that I'm competing on. And I was like, dude, they switched opponents all the time. I was like, if they need a 5-rounder or a main event, I was like, I'll just step up and I'll fight them. I'm on the same card anyways, and I'm in shape. I'm doing my thing. We'll make it happen. Like, not an issue. And then they gave it to Chepe Mariscal, and I'm like, bro, I beat that guy already. You know what I mean? But in my head, I'm just like, I'm not saying it's Dan Ige's call, but like he's the easier fight, in my opinion, than me. And when things are changing and whatever, and no shade on Dan Ige, that dude's a gangster. He proved it, on 303. But yeah, man, I'd like that fight. And if not that fight, maybe something fun like Nate Lander. Like I've been calling that guy out for the two fights, and they don't make it happen. So I don't know if they want to see me fight, but I was trying to give the fans something that they could root for.
Just final thing, like you get the win here. Like, what is the goal then for the rest of the year? Like, imagine at least one more in.
Yeah. I'd like to get 3, but like realistically, probably 2, depending on what they're giving me. You know what I mean? If let's say they give me Dan Ige, I want a decent camp. Hopefully 8 weeks, something like that. That'd be nice. If they want to give me just like someone else and try to just like keep me active, I don't know. It depends. This fight's really going to dictate a lot for me, I think, and so I have to wait and see like what actually is going to come up from it. In my head, I'm very confident. I'm always confident what I'm able to do. But this is a sport. MMA is crazy, and anything can happen. And I know that I'm checking all my boxes on what I need to do to win. I just gotta go out there and do it, But I don't know, man. I'd like to get at least one more in for sure.
Well, Steve, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Thanks, Cole. Appreciate you, brother.